What's up, y'all? You're listening to an all-new episode of the Christian Gray Snow Show, a podcast from Hurrdat Media. I'm your host, Christian Gray Snow, and today, my friend and my sister in Bravo, host of the Andy's Girls podcast, Sarah Galli, is here. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Christian Gray Snow. How are you?
Hey. Oh, my God. So good to see you. How you doing?
I'm so good. I literally, as you know, I do like this whole annual Bravo-themed holiday card, and it's go time right now, Christian. I feel like I'm in the trenches. I'm figuring everything out. It's a little extra sassy this year. So that's what I'm up to here in New York City.
Oh, I mean, literally the first bullet I have here is I'm very excited to receive my holiday card. I know, it's always an excitement. My personal favorite was the Kelly Dodd year where, things had really gone south with her. And you just said farewell to that relationship. As Andy has said about Jen Shah, the engagement was over, so you said farewell to Kelly on a holiday card one year. It was iconic. I cannot wait to see what you have this year. I was also surprised. She came through last night, y'all. She's like, hi, just, finalizing my checklist for holiday cards, confirming this is the right address. And I was like, this girl really has a checklist of all the Bravo content creators, where we live. She's like, if y'all ever fuck with me, I know where to find you.
Oh,
period.
Yeah.
Organized as fuck. I love it.
I mean, I have a color-coded spreadsheet. The Kelly Dodd year was probably the spiciest of any card because it was the holiday 2020 card, and the front of the card was a picture of Kelly and I the day before BravoCon 2019, and it was like the heading was something along the lines of like, COVID isn't the only reason to social distance, I think. Like, happy holidays, which is...
incredible, I love it. So I met you, in this lovely Bravo sphere of ours quite some time ago, but we finally got to really, kiki and see each other in October at BravoCon. I've talked about BravoCon many, many times on this podcast. Everyone here knows, I always say, despite the multiple anxiety attacks I experienced that weekend, it was the best 3 days of my entire life. So anytime I chat with someone who was there, I just want to hear everything they thought about it. So talk to me about BravoCon. Did you leave feeling the same way I did?
Well, so what was your final feeling? Like gratitude? Euphoria? Exhaustion?
Gratitude, and I miss it already. I missed it like the next day. I was like, I already want to go back.
I think it's a slightly different experience for New York City-based content creators, which is like a privilege, but also there's something else there because it's not even though it's really not a vacation for anybody, because we're at, like the central meeting point for 12 hours a day for 3 days plus, that because we live here, like we don't have to deal with like booking transportation or hotels or housing or like figuring out how to get there and where everything is, that it almost feels like until you're in this space, it's like another thing that you're doing. So even though I was really excited because 2019 was unbelievable. There will never be a year like 2019 just because it was so much smaller and they were kind of figuring stuff out. And we didn't have any expectations. That there was a feeling like before I got to the Javits Center of like, oh my God, I'm running late for my apartment. I need to like get there on time, day one. And what was, I think, honestly, the most fun for me was just seeing other content creators, people who I've maybe met at other Bravo events or haven't met before. And there's something about the content creator community that's so fun and also wild in that, like, you could consider someone a close friend, genuinely. Oh, yeah. Who you've never met before. And then when I meet them in person, I'm like, oh, hey, it's just another day. Because I'm so used to talking to them that it doesn't even occur to me that I haven't seen them before IRL. It's wild.
No, it's so wild. And then when you're with them, it's like it feels just as like you're spending time with the people that you do see on a regular basis. And also you worked on a piece about BravoCon, if I remember correctly, talking to people about their experiences and stuff. And what was a highlight from that? Because I know you talked to someone about, like, I think their mother had been sick or something. Is that correct?
Yeah. I wrote a piece for the Daily Beast that, because there were so many recaps of the weekend, all of which were phenomenal, but we're like, here's the thing that was crazy and here's what wasn't, and here's like the hot goss that came out of this panel or whatever. And I kind of felt that, the idea of Bravo is so community based, and there's almost like a therapeutic ideal or reality attached to that in our ability to, like, through sharing and reacting our perspectives about these women, we're able to really communicate how we're feeling about ourselves and everything else. And so I wrote a piece for the Daily Beast, the title of which was something along the lines of like, BravoCon was a wellness retreat. And
yes.
so I talked to content creators, I talked to attendees, and there was one person I spoke with who had lost his mom. He traveled from Canada to get to BravoCon. He spent 5,000 Canadian for a general admission ticket because of the high cost of travel, lodging, everything else, which is something that people don't think about. Like, you think, am I going to, again, as a New Yorker, it's like putting the idea of like spending X amount of dollars for these tiers, but someone may have spent 3 times as much as someone who spent SVIP because of travel. And he had kind of a difficult experience with the lines and everything else. And also his journey, having lost his mom, and I think also his job. And he talked about the fact that, and I think he talked about this in the interview in the piece too, that I think he had maybe spoken about it with his therapist or a group of friends, like that BravoCon was the first thing he really did for himself. And that being there was a reminder and a memory of the relationship that he shared with his mom over their love of Bravo, among obviously many other things, but also the idea that like, he was going to BravoCon obviously for the escape and the excitement, but also for self-care, which was a kind of different perspective, but one I think that we both probably share.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and just to, echo what you said, like, I had incredible experiences there, which I've detailed, with Bravo celebrities, but hands down, the best part was just putting, seeing these faces that I recognize and feel like I could pick out on any sidewalk in any city in America because I've known them for years, but finally seeing them for the first time and everyone being just as exactly as you would expect them to be. It was so fun, so incredible. I tell everyone, like, look, I don't want BravoCon to get any bigger because it was
my God, no.
insanely big, but I want so many people to be able to experience that excitement and that fun because it truly, like, I just can't, you can't put it into words. It's so unique and something that only, us housewives girlies could really get into. And speaking of housewives, we're going to jump into Real Housewives of Miami, which now by the time this airs, episode 5 will be out. I have not had time to see episode 5 because your girl has been working like Vicky Gumbelson, my ass off this week in Atlanta. Okay. But we're going to really talk quickly on the first 4 episodes because Peacock granted us with basically a mega drop. They gave us 4 episodes all at once. Nothing has ever made me happier. I feel like it's honestly right now already the best show we have on at the moment. Made me realize I feel maybe some other Housewives series really aren't up to the par maybe we thought they were. I've already watched all the episodes twice, so I want to see. What are you thinking? How is Miami? How are you feeling about Miami so far?
Well, there's so much excellence, I think, associated with this reboot that honestly continues to amaze me because when they said they were rebooting Miami, as I just did now, I think I laughed. I just didn't believe that after so many years, this was finally happening. And then when they said some of the cast is coming back and there's some newbies, but one of the returners, which I can't stop talking about her, is Larsa Pippen, I was like, oh, this is going to be terrible. Because Larsa, I thought, during the first generation of Miami, was one of the worst one-season housewives of all time. So imagine my amazement and shock when the first season of the reboot happened and Larsa Pippen was a goddamn breakout star. Like,
yes.
She is giving superstar. And I don't know how much of this is connected to her, like, separation from all things Kardashian Inc., but I have to thank the disillusion of her friendship with Kim because I think there's some, like, spiritual awakening and independence. Maybe that has to do with the Scotty divorce, whatever else. She's so much more comfortable expressing herself, including in being like an anti-hero, which I cannot get enough of. So like the Larsa of it all to me is headline news, but it just feels like the energy in Miami is so good and so different, where like
Yes.
it harkens back to me, but also still totally different to classic New York, where the
Mm-hmm.
environment and the city is a friend of. It is truly the
Yes.
foundation. And I feel like the energy of Miami through like percolating throughout all of this, I find it intoxicating. I literally
Yes.
can't get enough.
Yeah, I want refill after refill after refill.
Yes.
Bartender, please keep them coming. Yes, I couldn't agree more. Larsa, I said this in my group chat with my friends the other day. Larsa is quickly becoming like top 10, 15 housewives material without trying or absolutely giving a fuck to be. And I think that that is incredible, you know? And you are so right that the city is just, it is a character in the show. I mean, like the fact that within 5 minutes of the fucking season opening, we were at the Miami Open. Are
Oh
you
my
kidding?
God.
You know, like this is the luxury that we sign up for, you know, and these women, they just bring it. I mean, and you never know. They're unpredictable, but in the absolute best way, you know? So my next question, now your previous answer may have answered this. Who is your MVP so far in the 4 episodes we've seen? Is it Larsa?
Well, it's so hard because honestly, this is what I love about Miami is like I don't actually think that there's a number one because there are so many different narratives taking place. I genuinely, personally, I have so much affection for Alexia and the vulnerability that she has shown and the openness of her family in having incredibly uncomfortable conversations with each other that feel very real and grounded and upsetting. And the grace in which they've allowed all of us to like bear witness to that, I don't take for granted. So it's hard but like, I mean, Marisol's confessionals.
Oh
Like,
my
babe.
God.
Like, Dorinda Only Wishes. Like, it's giving.
Oh yeah.
This woman is like in full ownership and control of herself. Absolute zero Fs. Like, it's so iconic. But also, I mean, we have to acknowledge the tension brimming under the surface that on episode 5 seems to be shooting out, which is the realization that like Lenny doesn't live here anymore. So Lisa Hochstein, I think we all feel sympathy and affection. I have to ask your thoughts. What do you think? Do you have a breakout?
Okay. I honestly, so Alexia is always my girl, but I feel, and that's just because, you know, I mean, I do find her similar to like a Teresa in a way, like the OGs that understand the value that comes from just being as open and honest as you can, you know, showing the bad of life, the bad parts of life, the good parts of life, and showing the navigation of it all, you know. And maybe they're not going to go about it the right way, not because not everybody does, but they're showing it, and that's honestly that is what the show is about, you know. Now we like us some drama and luxury on the side too, but at the end of the day, we need to see some real shit happening. And I think that Alexia really, obviously, I mean, with her storylines last season alone, could have produced 10 seasons of Housewives, you know. So I think Alexia is iconic. However, I even tweeted this the other day. Despite her being my girl, I think that this is a Larsa and Lisa year. I mean, their storylines, you know, Larsa just being the young single girl and being like so hot-headed that she will go at anybody, even if it's her bestie, and she expects loyalty, which is a great housewife trait to have. Like if you don't give me loyalty, I give you death, you know, and that's kind of how she is. So I'm right now, it's Lisa and Larsa for me, but I know that is, you know, we're just having a good period of time for them. And I think that it's always anybody's role for the taking because this cast is full of stars, you know?
I also think it's maybe like as a whole, one of the most likable casts around.
There's not one person on the cast I don't like.
Honestly, like even if they say something in a way, I'm like, yeah, I like that you're speaking your mind. We have to get away from the idea that likability is directly connected to personal agreement and enter into this phase and idea of like, you don't have to necessarily support someone's behavior or decide that you would do exactly the same thing in that situation. You can just appreciate what we're being given right now, which feels like honestly a lot of truth and a lot of excitement and obviously Jesus a lot of drama. Like the last how many times did you watch the end of episode 4? Keep it real.
Oh my God. And all I wanted to, I don't know how the producers in that house weren't like breaking glass. I
Oh
don't know,
my
are you
God.
fucking kidding me? Like, and then, on a professional note, like they can't say anything, they have to let it, I guess, air out. I don't know what you do in a situation like that. Like, does HR step in a situation like that? I mean, really, you know?
And Lenny, whatever the opposite of America's sweetheart is, he has that absolute title. Said apparently this week that like that moment was edited to support Lisa, which is like, come on, guy. Like, what are you even trying to do? Like, what's even the point here? Just take one for the team because you're not going to come out of this clean. You're
Like,
the dirtiest dog around.
yeah, the dirtiest. And like to talk about, and it was just the way that he said it too. Like, well, if I have sex with my wife, I'll be cheating on who I really care about. Like, you're saying this in the presence of your children. Your kids are like right in the house, like, and then also the guy's like, aren't you mic'd? You dumb fuck. Like, hello. And he's like, oh, I'm whispering.
Idiot.
Have you ever seen reality TV? They're going to get it, baby. They're going to get it. And I'm glad they got it. My question also for you is, obviously we all want Lisa to come out on top of this. We all want her to take him for every dime he's worth, or I at least want her to get a lot. But my friends and I have talked about it, and they're fearful that prenup is like ironclad. She probably just signed it, because they've been together a long time,
Yeah.
and prenups back in the day, and I don't know at what point in his career they got married, like if he was already wealthy or not. So what do you think she's going to get? Do you think she's going to get anything from him?
Well, there are so many questions that I have. I mean, I know that later on in this season, or maybe even coming up soon, she filmed something with Leah Black, who gives some perspective, I think, through the lens of like the fact that her husband is Roy Black, who's a very, very famous attorney. So I think it will probably come down to whomever Lisa has as her essentially legal army in this. It probably doesn't hurt things for her that he's absolutely confessing to infidelity on camera. And I think that there is probably always some sort of negotiation that takes place. Like, I don't know how it works when it comes to like how many assets he has versus the assets they created together through the course of their marriage. But also, I forget if this was discussed on the show or in press, but like, whose name is on the deed for the house? This house has been the centerpiece of the show since the reboot began. The building of this bajillion-dollar house, like, is her name on the deed? Did she think of that? She talks about the fact that she was responsible for doing their finances, but that seems absurd if she didn't know about this whole credit line versus mortgage thing and them throwing parties for cash. I'm nervous for her because I think any kind of divorce when acrimonious becomes a little bit of an education, and it's not necessarily, the kind of school you would want to attend.
Yeah.
And like from forensic accounting, I think it's going to be, there's no indication this is going to go quietly. I don't know how you maintain a lifestyle to which you've become accustomed when your husband is also trying to kick you out of the house.
Well, and that's my thing though. Like, even if he did give her like a decent amount of money, the lifestyle that they lead, like, Sarah, when she had that shot in her closet, I literally counted like 12 Birkins on one shelf. I'm like, that is damn near $500,000 on the one shelf of bags, and the house alone is, my God, how many, $30 million probably. So I just, and a long time that she's been living this lifestyle. So even if she gets every fucking dime of his, I hope that she is smart with it. And I hope, you know what I'm saying? I hope that she has a good team of people behind her to be like, look, times are changing, baby. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have whatever you get, you've got to be smart with,
Yeah, and I talked about this on on a recent episode of Andy's Girls with our pal Ryan Bailey when it comes to the idea of like women in potentially traditional marriage or relationship structures. What happens to the relationship when you join Housewives, especially if for a woman in the relationship, they had been in a dynamic where their partner, husband, boyfriend, whomever really was the primary provider when it came to finances. Like, how does joining Housewives shift that dynamic when you have your own independent stream of income, potentially for the first time as an adult or for the first time after many, many years of being in a relationship? And what's the cost of that? Like, if you're in a dynamic with someone who is used to being seen as the provider, let alone providing the actual income itself, like in that kind of shared responsibility, how does this all work when the attention is now going to you? Like, what's the cost of joining Housewives in those kinds of dynamics? But also, what's the opportunity here? Like, have Lisa and Lenny been on a downward slide for a while, and how much did the reboot affect that? Like, it's like the scary thing with some of these dynamics is like there is a cost of finding independence, which I think is really complicated and sad.
It's very true. And it brings up, some are lucky. Like, we look at like a Tamra Judge, like let's look at when back in the day that she was Tamra Barney. I'm surprised that she even got on the show based with how not that they didn't want. I'm not surprised Bravo wanted to cast her because she's iconic, obviously. I'm surprised that she was able to convince Simon to do it with him being the way that we later found out he was to be, but also she is a walking example of what this franchise can do for maybe a woman that's in a place of, of wealth, but also in a relationship where she has nothing if she takes a step for herself, and that she, Tamra ultimately did every single thing right, and she's completely turned it around. She's made it a career and is sitting on probably quite a few mil at this point. So listen, I hope that Lisa, again, I hope that we're all completely surprised by how loaded she ends up out of this divorce. That's really what I hope, but we'll see. I also wanted to ask you before we move on, do you think it's weird about Larsa dating Michael Jordan's son, Marcus?
So I know that she was like bringing him as her plus one to various media events and interviews when she was here in New York, like as her quote unquote friend. And the thing is, did you watch that whole like Michael Jordan docu-series?
I didn't watch it, but I know about like the history between like he and Scotty.
So I watched that whole thing and I loved it, and now I've completely forgotten everything about their relationship history, so I think I need to rewatch. But like, there was a lot of, I'm not a sports person, but I love great docuseries, including sports related ones. So there was like a lot of tension with him and Scotty, right?
Yeah, Scotty basically said like years after that that basically all the attention was always given to Michael, and like everything was celebrated. He was like the star, but really the team should have gotten uplifted. And I guess they'd had like probably a friendship because they were teammates for years. And I don't know if that comment is what drove it south, or maybe if that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, amongst other things that maybe the public didn't know. So yeah, but that was the history that I had.
Because I would initially instinctively think, and this could be entirely incorrect, that like, oh, that's so interesting. That's almost like a little FU to Michael. But then I'm like, no, wait, it's actually an FU to Scotty, maybe? Like, I don't actually know.
Oh, it's a huge FU to Scotty.
I thought of Michael first for some reason. And then I was like, no, wait, hold up.
I think it's an FU to both of them.
Yeah, which I'm kind of into, to be honest. Like, Larsa, do your thing. Like, live your best life. I don't know if this is real, but I'm really down for whatever the hell she wants to do.
Get it, Larsa. All right, we're going to move into this week's episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We're very early minded in the episode that Heather Gay is not to be trusted, okay? Whitney and Lisa are talking in the morning about how Heather threw Whitney under the bus the night before, because she was telling Jen, she's like, I didn't know that Whitney was going to bring Angie Harrington to the choir, bullshit that we all had to be forced to sit through. And Whitney's like, you literally like fucking invited us. So I want to just get your general thoughts before this is. What were your thoughts on Heather versus Whitney going into this episode? Because we obviously got a lot of Heather and Whitney at this episode. But you were also at BravoCon, and there was a lot of Heather versus Whitney at BravoCon. Jen Shaw showing up uninvited. I mean, Salt Lake was the star at BravoCon. Let's just put it that way. So how are you feeling about the breakup of Bad Weather?
I mean, I have to say it was the star for a reason. I will never, for the rest of my life, get over the Salt Lake City panel because it was an unedited, full stop reunion episode. I will literally never get over it. I want to find that energy every day for the rest of my life. The euphoria that I like, shout out HBO Max, the real euphoria taking place is what we saw happen on that stage. And God bless those 4 women, because I think the headline news coming out of that is like, no one needs to talk about Jen because you have a total and complete show happening right now with these 4 women. So like whomever you add to this, to me, it almost doesn't matter because we've got 4 superstars, or at least a lot of story going on. I find myself very confused about the Heather and Whitney of it all. And I found myself while watching the episode more confused. I know that's not an answer, but I'm so curious for your thoughts.
Listen, I mean, I am Team Whitney in the situation. However, I do think that when Whitney says that, you're not hearing me, I think there's a lot of not hearing each other, because I feel like the audience, we're also confused. Like, I know that Whitney feels upset because she feels like at a time that basically Heather should have been the best friend she could be. Not only is she kind of missing being absent, but she also is just showing extra levels of effort towards other friendships that shouldn't hold that same value. And I think that Whitney has just been trying to nicely put that to Heather, because she knows that Heather doesn't react well to being confronted. And now we as viewers did not really know that until this season, because Heather's always been the good time girl and was just, like her conflicts were pretty minimal aside from Lisa Barlow, and Lisa wasn't really, and now that they're holding her accountable with hard facts, like okay, no, this was a group filming event. You invited us. You can't say on camera you didn't invite us. Like, I think that, it's just getting a lot more and more messy, because not only is Heather getting caught, so she's trying to deflect more, but I think Whitney is just struggling with showing her exactly like how, in all the ways of which she's being a bad friend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that Whitney is currently really triggered by feeling that she's not being heard, or that she's being minimized or dismissed. And that's a hard thing to do in this dynamic when you have people who are almost like at Olympic levels. And I don't mean this obviously as a compliment, but just in terms of being like very effective as folks who diminish or minimize. Like Jen Shah has quite a talent and skill at completely reshifting and painting herself as the victim of her own poor behavior. And we're seeing that continue to build over the course of each week. So I think for Whitney, she's currently caught up in this cycle of wanting to break various cycles. And Heather's like, what the fuck is going on? Because it is a little bit of a sea change when a friend establishes boundaries or communicates boundaries in a way that they didn't prior. So I think what we're watching is like a lot of friction associated to that. But then there's also like the idea of like, were you talking about the Utah Jazz tickets? Like, were you present for that? Why are you saying I'm lying? Like, there's a lot of genuine, like, factual information that I think needs to be established or corrected, which I assume will come up or be a huge part of the reunion.
Yeah, because someone's either lying their ass off or absolutely needs to go to the doctor and have the memory area checked. Because it's one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's giving Rinna. Did I say that? I don't remember. I mean, it's like the way that we have short-term memory loss, that is a characteristic, a diagnosis that's been established on every franchise through the course of time.
Well, while Whitney, Dana, and Angie K were surfing, which also, I don't understand how people do surf in the Pacific Ocean, because it's like always freezing. It's just like notoriously cold. And then Whitney didn't even put a wetsuit on. I was like, hello, pneumonia. Like, what are you thinking? Sorry.
No, thank you.
I was like, the mother in me is jumping out. Like, Whitney, put your wetsuit on. Also, I want to say, if I were Meredith in this moment, I would have maybe had a little bit of self-concern for my future on the show, because she stayed back and said she would sit on the board, but she didn't get in the water. And obviously we knew that the other group going to lunch was going to be a very big moment, that they were going to have a sit down. I think anybody that works on the show or is on the show knew that something was going to come out of that as far as content goes. And so either she chose to sit back or producers had her sit back for that. And I just think that while there was a lot of, a fun moment of bonding with Whitney having fun with these new girls, and then also like major drama and confrontation between Heather and Jen on one end. And I know that Meredith hates Lisa right now and vice versa, and they probably don't want to be across from each other. But to me, I don't know. I just feel like as someone who is constantly like fearful of like losing my job, I would have been like, why am I not involved in either one of these? And I need to make a change. So that was just a weird takeaway for me. And I had a note about that. Am I the only one that noticed that? Probably.
No, I don't think you were. I think it gets into this, like, you raised the point, which I think is really important, of, she might not have been the one to make the decision. She might be the one communicating wishes from someone on production. I don't know if that means it'll be a mark against her overall, or maybe this is just a part of like the idea that some of Meredith's identity or the ways that we identify her are directly connected to like, I'm disengaging. So that might just be natural and organic to her. And maybe she just was like, I'm tapping out. Like, I don't want to be there for part of this, or maybe it was strategic. I have no idea. But can I just ask you, like, do you think it is possible in this world, in this universe, for Meredith and Lisa to come back to each other? Is it dead in the water?
Listen, I don't care if you were drunk or if you were paid $1 million. If you said that shit about me, you are dead to me. Like, I don't think I could ever. I'm not saying we can't have a laugh around a dinner table with a group of people like you on the other end, but like, we will never, ever, ever be. How do you trust that person ever again? And if you can, it's going to take time, a lot of time. Do you think they will?
I don't know. It makes me sad though, because I also think that like, I do think that Lisa thought she was not mic'd at that, or that there wasn't a mic near her at that point. Very different from Lenny, who's like, oh, I'm wearing one, but I'm better than everything. And I'm just refuse to acknowledge reality, which seems to be the place he's in his life. So like, I'm going to whisper, and that's how mics work, versus Lisa, who I think genuinely did not, probably asked if there was a mic around when she was venting to a producer. But also maybe that makes it worse in terms of like, this is what you're saying when you think that no one else can hear you. But I think that Meredith's behavior this season and engaging in conversation that's referencing Lisa doing various things is also not great, even if like, do you still have to...
Two wrongs don't make a right by any means.
And like, what happens when a friendship breaks up? Like, the idea of just completely turning loyalty on its head, and like, is it a form of betrayal if you're no longer friends? Like, I think that gets into a weird and interesting area. But with Meredith, I think like she's been dancing in some dark waters too. So I'm like, couldn't we just, I know it's not the same thing, but like, neither of your hands are clean. So like, couldn't we find,
like, call it even?
Can't we like wash our hands in a communal sink or something at some point in the middle of next season?
I will say they're in an environment that is unlike, like, yes, it's reality TV, but at the same time, it is a different dynamic than if you and I were to have that happen and we were seeing each other every day. Like, they are in an environment where they're around people that are going to constantly be encouraging them to talk and be around each other, and there's money on the line, there's a job on the line, and I think a lot of things could influence those decisions. I think it would be great content for them to get back together, and then they could break up again. Let's just do it all over again. Heather asked Jen while they're out at lunch if she believes that their friendship is toxic. She says, the things that Jen does is terrifying and toxic, basically, which we can all agree, I'm pretty sure. Jen says, well, that's because you're a flip-flopper. She says, because you're such a flip-flopper that you are wearing some flip-flops. That's why I act the way I do. Jen deflection Shaw is Jen. So, and then as Lisa and Heather are holding her accountable in a very respectful way. I thought they weren't aggressive. They weren't loud. They were they weren't doing anything that should have really triggered her other than being told that something you did was wrong. And Jen then says, well, because of this whole Shaw exposed account, like when I saw that, I was having a bad day and basically said that she tried to take an attempt on her own life, and that, the Shaw exposed account was the final, drop in the bucket that made her do that. I find this a very difficult subject to even speak on, just because, you never want to take away from anyone's experience, but I do, it also is. I saw a tweet that summed up my feelings, so I'm just going to read the tweet. Okay. This is what it said. It said, this is from Bravo Brat. Okay. Likely unpopular opinion. Jen Shah is a toxic, selfish narcissist. Her using a suicide attempt to manipulate her friends is unforgivable. You don't use such instances to control a narrative and avoid accountability. And I think that, given the history of deflection and avoiding, accountability that we have seen from Jen, we all knew that she would try to avoid it to some level in that conversation. I just don't think that we expected her to say what she did. And if she, and I hate, if God fucking forbid, that this, she was in the hospital 2.5 days. I know that was fucking horrible for Coach, for her sons, but also, my God, this is a platform, and to just throw something like they're out and know that it was going to end the conversation. To me, it felt like a conversation stopper. So I wanted to get your take on that moment.
I think it's a really difficult topic and subject. I think the timing of the episode airing, and just life being what it was with everything that happened with Twitch.
Yes.
And the heartbreaking news of his death, I think people are already feeling, many people at least are already feeling a certain way. So then to watch this episode with the use of Jen's story, I just felt like a little about all of it, which is a really not in any way communicative response. But I was very uncomfortable with the ways that Whitney's lack of knowledge about what happened, which obviously no one knew, the ways that was being used to shame Whitney or humiliate her for not knowing. That made me honestly just feel really sad, because during a season that's covered a lot of trauma, and also the idea of just a lot of Jen's characteristics and personality, I think, was something that everyone can acknowledge is a very serious situation and circumstance. For it to be discussed in the way that it was, as a form of attacking other cast members, I think is really tough. And I don't know how they're going to talk about this at the reunion if Jen attends, which is filming this week, by the way.
When this episode drops, the ladies will probably be on a set somewhere. Wow. And I think they filmed in LA last year, so I don't know if they're following suit this year or going to New York, but reunion films this week. I think Jen's going to be there. I think. We'll see.
Talk about the ability as a New Yorker to be able to go to certain things. I am hoping to go to the sentencing.
Oh my God! Yes, you have to.
Hoping
Imagine
is such a weird
been,
way.
Same week as BravoCon, it would have just been way too good.
Oh my God! I mean, it's a weird way to be I hope to be there, but I am curious, and there are going to be legal commentators and Bravo creators, because it's just a very odd and strange and terrible situation and circumstance. And
global case at this point, everyone knows about
national,
it.
So, it's national plus news. It's a very I literally do not understand how they're going to cover this at the reunion, and then shift to so Jen, you're really upset about somebody saying something, and you say that you're the victim in that. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it, but prayers up to all of those.
You threw
producers.
an innocent woman's shoes over in the ocean. You threw trash in the ocean. I was you're littering on camera.
Also,
even if I was her, I'd have my seatbelt buckled twice with all the trouble that I was in. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would be obeying every law, every rule, especially when the cameras were rolling. She just doesn't give a shit. She does not care.
She really doesn't. And like, this could literally be used against her in the guidance that people are giving for what her term will look like. Like, she's on television and then in real time on social media behaving in a way that's like not ideal, and her husband is and or was an attorney. I don't know if he still has his law license, but like, what, ma'am, like, what are you doing? You're angry at people because you think that their criticism of you is going to affect your family, but like, babe, what's going on, honey? Like, sweetie, what are we up to here? We're shot exposed.
Nothing's going to affect your family more than what you did. You know, it's like, my gosh. Well, in an attempt to end things on a positive note, the girls did go to a gay bar called Flicks in San Diego. They got super hammered, followed by pizza, shaking their literal tits at the pool. I will say, I never knew how good of boobs Jen Shah had till they were bouncing around.
She has phenomenal boobs.
Her body was just banging. I was like, and honestly, I hate to say it, but she's going to be a good time in prison. You know, she really knows how to light up these girl strips.
Oh my God. She's a good time girl. She's a good time
girl. She really is. Well, house cameras show the ladies finally crash around 3:30 in the morning. And then at 4:50 a.m., cameras show someone trying to get into Heather's room. You can see the door handle like shaking, which is also like terrifying, by the way. And we see then it cuts. We don't see what happens, who's opening the door. We see Heather go and be like, it's really late. And then it cuts. And then the next morning, Jen and Heather are calling in Meredith, to which then Heather reveals the most gnarly black eye I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm like, the way that she had to be in aching pain just sitting there. Yeah. And Meredith like looks like she's going to throw up. It looks so bad. And then the fucking episode ends with us having no idea what happens. And also, again, back to BravoCon where we saw the Ultimate Girls Trip 3 trailer. Mm-hmm. Heather still tried to deny that she said she didn't know what happens. So is this going to be just a denial game all season long? What do you think happened?
Okay, so when the trailer first came out for the season, I was like, and we only saw the actual black eye, which was honestly an iconic reveal. I thought it was like a procedure. Like, I thought it was like maybe something like just the after, you know, because sometimes you can get genuinely like black eyes, bruising, which is not a sign of any. Yeah, it's just bruising. But then she did the reveal and it's like, okay, it's happening on the trip. Got it. Then we look at her arm, like the camera goes to her arms and we see what looks like scratches. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Because then I started thinking like maybe genuinely an accidents happen. Like she could have fallen into it. I'm dead serious. She could have fallen into the door handle. Like she could have fallen. You can fall on your bed. Like and
we've seen Luann fall in bushes. Yes. You know, it can happen.
We didn't see Luann with anything the next day, but
she could have.
She could have, like anything can happen. So I was thinking they're all drunk. They're like, you know, kooky crazy. Like maybe she fell or something happened. But like the like I'm trying to understand, doing like for my own forensic accounting of this. Like I don't know how scratches work. If you're like, that would work if you were Lou in the bushes. Scratches make sense.
Exactly.
But if you're in your hotel room, I don't know where scratches come from. I am like a little oy vey on edge.
No, I mean, obviously my first mind goes to Jen went to confront her about not having her back, and now Heather is refusing to expose Jen because it would obviously worsen her situation. But also, is there not going to be room footage of it? Because we see her go to the door. So does she walk outside and then something? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But it really is wild to me that even all those months later, she was, you know, from what we saw in that brief moment in the Ultimate Girls Trip 3 trailer, still claiming she had no idea how it happened.
That doesn't make sense to me.
No. And if that, you don't have any idea how, listen, Heather, is it, maybe she staged all this to be like, I don't know what happened. I can't remember, just to pretend that her memory really is that bad.
I mean, that would require a level of performance. The only person that I could see achieving that goal is Jen. I'm not guilty. I'm the victim of the federal government, Shah. I mean.
Yeah, Jen's going to walk into the courthouse with a bruise on her eye, too, just to try and get some sympathy.
Entirely. Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Yes. Well, as we always do, we're going to end this game with the rapid fire Housewives questions game, which I know is your favorite game ever.
I'm such a bad test taker. I have fumbled the ball on this so many times.
It's okay. I only did like 5 questions.
Okay.
So
it will take
easy.
me 8 hours.
Fun.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, see how many questions we can get through. Here we go. Fire any current housewife from any city. Go.
Jen Shah.
Okay. Bravo Leb that you used to hate, but now you love.
I don't think about love, but I think I have a lot of respect for Candace.
Oh my God, that's my answer too.
Respect and affection. I've got a lot of affection.
I'm a baby basset hound.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's a renaissance. Yeah. I'm not a full basset hound, but I'm here to foster. Yeah.
Yes, I'm like, we're working on our relationship.
Yeah.
Is what I'm
Yeah.
Fire. Okay, let's see. Favorite Bravo Leb you met at BravoCon.
Ooh, geez, I didn't meet a lot of Bravo Lebs in person at BravoCon. I know I just saw a bunch of them at a Bravo event with Page 6, including one of your personal favorites, who is genuinely one of my favorites, Jackie Goldschneider. So she's up there. I love Jackie. I love Marge. I didn't see a lot of Bravo Lebs. BravoCon 2019 I saw a bunch, but not at 2022. Yeah.
Alrighty. How many years do you think Jen's going to get in jail?
I would say around 10, which is what I've seen you post. You posted, I think, on social 8 to 10, and I think 8 to 10, I would agree with that, but I don't know what's going to happen with this. Judge is really serious. I was on the phone for one of her initial hearings, and he's not playing around, Judge Stein, so I don't know for Judge.
Oh, that just gave me chills when you said that. Oh my God. Create a Housewives franchise in any city. Where would it be?
Oh my God. You know what? This is so dumb, but I am a native New Englander. I'm a roadie girl, so I don't know what this show would look like, but I'm here for Real Housewives of the Boston area.
Yes, I think that would be awesome. Which housewife do you think is going to have the best 2023?
Oh my God, prayers up. Hashtag I stand for Shan. I just want Shannon Beador, 9 lemons, and a bowl filled with joy.
Yes, I love it. We're going to end on that note because, we all, if Shannon's happy, I feel like everybody's happy. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you so much for coming. Tell everybody you have a live show coming up. It's going to be online, correct?
Yes, it's a live.
Drop all the info.
It is a live show, and Andy Scrolls Live. It's actually a moment that I am co-hosting with guest co-host and friend of both of ours, Ryan Bailey, who's the host of the amazing podcast So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. So we are doing a live show with Moment on Thursday, January 5th, which I refer to as Erev Jen Shah, because it's the night before Jen Shah's sentencing. And you can get tickets at $12 tickets at moment.co/Andy Scrolls, and on-demand tickets are available. And listen to Andy Scrolls. It's a podcast that I host all about the psychology behind Real Housewives, 2 episodes a week. And you can find that wherever you listen to your favorite pods, and follow me on Instagram at Dame Galli.
Yay! All right, everybody, that was Sarah Galli. Sarah, thank you so much for being with me. It's always such a pleasure, and I can't wait till we are with each other again. Everybody, hang tight. All right, everybody, as always, thank you for kicking off your weekend with me. I am here in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here working all week. I'm going to the Jingle Ball Atlanta tonight with Power 96.1, so it's going to be a good time. If you follow me at Christian Grace Snow, I'll post about it all about it there. And be sure to follow along for more Housewives updates, silly Housewives memes, get you some good Housewives merch at theslutpigshop.com. And as always, don't do anything I wouldn't do, which means you're free to go be a crazy slut pig. Besos, y'all.